I bought this custom powder coated GT La Bomba dirt jumper on Facebook Marketplace for only $450. In this video, I'm going to tell you why I bought this specific bike. We'll take a closer look at it, including fixing some problems, and then we'll take it for a test ride to see if it was worth buying this bike. Stick around to the end to find out. Of all the ways to spend time on a bike, my favorite times are spent jumping, learning new tricks, and riding features. But since there aren't any bike parks nearby, I've been taking my full-size trail bike, my Santa Cruz 5010, to skate parks, pump tracks, and skills parks. The 5010 is definitely the BMX of trail bikes, however, it's not as optimal as a dirt jumper. So it just made sense for me to start looking for a gently used dirt jumper on Facebook Marketplace. And I think I may have found the perfect bike. This actually isn't the first dirt jumper I've owned. At the beginning of the summer, I bought a 2006 Giant STP to test the waters with. Despite my optimism about the bike at the time, the twitchy, narrow handlebars and the pogo stick fork made me feel pretty unsafe and honestly led me to never really ride the bike. So I reposted it on Facebook Marketplace and quickly sold it for $275, so I actually made a $105 profit, which was pretty sick. 2 days later, I bought the GT La Bomba for $450. I consequently learned a lot about dirt jumpers from researching upgrades for the STP, so when I bought this bike, I knew what I was getting. This GT La Bomba was $1,200 new, so right off the bat, I knew I was getting quality components. One of the biggest selling points for me about the bike was the Manitou Circus Expert fork. The Manitou Circus Expert is a coil fork with air assist, compression adjustment, and rebound adjustment. This fork is not only much newer than the fork on the old bike, but it also has a lot more adjustability. This fork also has a 20 by 110 millimeter through axle, which is a lot more robust and confidence inspiring compared to the flimsy quick release skewer that came on the old bike. This bike also has horizontal dropouts and built-in chain tensioners. This means the chain tension can be adjusted by sliding the rear wheel forward and backwards in the dropouts. This eliminates the need for an ugly chain tensioner like on the old dirt jumper. And if you're wondering why this is the only purple 2018 La Bomba that you've ever seen, that's because the original owner actually had it powder coated this color. It used to be chrome. The paint and the decals are definitely wild, but they're starting to grow on me. Before I took the bike to the skate park for a test ride, I wanted to take a closer look at the bike and make sure everything was safe. And upon closer inspection, I noticed an issue. The first thing I noticed after putting the bike on the work stand is that the cranks didn't spin freely. At first, I thought it was because a buildup of grease, but it actually was because the chain tension was just too tight. Utilizing the built-in chain tensioners, I loosened the chain to the optimal tension. The key here is to have the chain loose enough for the cranks to spin freely, but also not too loose to where the chain will pop off. One way to test if your chain tension is perfect is to spin the cranks and put a little bit of sideways force onto the chain and see if it pops off. If it doesn't pop off and the cranks can spin freely, then you know you have the optimal chain tension. While I was working on the bike, I figured I might as well make some other adjustments. One adjustment I always like to do is rearrange the stem in relation to the stem spacers to change the height of the handlebars, and more specifically, moving the handlebars up. Moving the handlebars up makes the front end of the bike easier to pop up, and it also allows me to keep my head up when cruising around. I made an in-depth video on this topic called Change Your Mountain Bike's Geometry for free if you want to learn more about this. Next, I slid my brake levers in just a skosh and angled them to where they felt comfortable. I like mine at 45 degrees. And the last thing I did was plug up the end of the handlebars. That way, if I fall onto the end of the bars, I won't get coarse ambled. I had just a few more things to check before I could go test ride the bike and see if it was the bike of my dreams. I checked that the pedals were tight, filled the tires with air, and adjusted the seat height. After reading the recommended PSI chart on the lower leg of the fork, I filled the fork with 25 PSI of air. Alright, so now that the air pressure is set, the only thing left to do is mess around with the rebound and the compression knobs. So we're going to do that during the test ride because I feel like you can't really get a sense of that in a little workshop. So we're going to take it out for the test ride and I'm going to give you guys my impressions of the bike. So You ready to go, Olive? Let's go do it. I took the dirt jumper to the skate park and rode around for about 2 hours, and I'm pretty sure it was the best 2 hours of my life. The bike felt super dialed. I was a little too excited and never ended up even playing around with the suspension settings because it was so much better compared to the old dirt jumper's fork. The modern Geo and components were light years ahead of what the 2006 Giant STP offered. I also felt like I was landing 180s with ease. On the old dirt jumper, I was landing maybe 1 out of every 20 180s that I was doing, and on this bike, I landed like 1 out of every 5, which was pretty astounding. I felt crazy smooth and was learning new skills at a rate I never have before. So, with everything we know now, was the bike worth $450? Compared to other dirt jumpers I've looked at on Facebook Marketplace, this bike was an incredible deal. Even if I resold this bike for $700 tomorrow, I doubt I could find a bike with better spec or in better condition. The bike is 5 years old, but it's not used and abused as hard as most 5-year-old dirt jumpers are. I look forward to upgrading and learning a lot with this bike over the next few months. If you want to see what I end up doing with this bike in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel. But yeah, this bike was without a doubt worth $450. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching.